Third and 5 for the Saints. Carr steps up and he's looking for the end zone. He's looking for a catch, and that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and that is a touchdown. 40 yards. He had some coverage back there, but a perfect throw, and he did the last few yards and just separated himself. Made his first catch last weekend. Makes his first touchdown against the Falcons.
Mike, we wondered where the speed, the opportunity would come for the Saints, and this is just thrown to a spot.
Welcome on into a winning edition of Inside Black and Gold. Skid snapped. We're back on the good side, beating the hated Falcons 20-17. Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak on Inside Black and Gold. And man, oh man, Victory Mondays, how I've missed you so.
Hooah! No, that's happy Veterans Day to everyone involved. But yeah, no, man, I needed that. I did. I needed that after 7 weeks of losing. That it's bad for your soul. That's the way I phrase it after the game. Like we can talk about the game, we can talk about everything. It's just bad for you as a person to go 2 full months without winning at the thing that you do for a living, right? Like it's just not good. It's not good. It's bad for your mental state. It's bad for your physical health. It's bad for everybody. It's bad for everybody. So it had to happen. It was going to happen eventually. It happened, and it happened in the first official day of Rizzi ball, which
Merry Rizmas.
Merry Rizmas. Colin was wearing his Merry Rizmas shirt in the locker room after the game. Colin Saunders, and man, it was just a good feeling. It just, not all is well with the Saints. That doesn't fix the problems they have. That doesn't fix all the things that they have to figure out throughout the course of this season and the off season and going forward into next season and whatever. But until you won a game, it's like it's hard to remember what it feels like, what it takes to win a game against anybody. And
even at the end, you got a little nervous.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to talk about from that game, and we'll get into it. We're gonna do this episode a little bit differently than we have in the past. So we're gonna break this up for the podcast feed. We're gonna do it all here on YouTube. So we're gonna talk this first segment about Darren Rizzi and kind of the Rizzi experience and what he had to say and what the team had to say and all that stuff. Second segment, we're gonna do 3 up, 3 down, and then for the podcast audience, we're gonna wrap it up there. And then we're gonna come back on YouTube and do a live mailbag, and that will post on Tuesday. For the podcast audience, you'll get it all here today. So if you have comments, questions, whatever, throw them in the chat and we'll get to as many as possible. And we'll break it up like that. But yeah, I mean, you were getting the phone calls after the game, Steve. I have to imagine there was a little bit more positivity coming through after that one.
Yeah, and you know what was surprising to me, Jeff, too? There wasn't really much Dennis Allen hate being spewed at us. It was all about definitely an attitude change, the feeling change. Happy to see players, more animated on the field, more energy, and obviously the head coach's expressions on the sideline with Rizzi were a plus, but definitely not a lot of shade thrown at Allen. So kudos to the Who-Dats on that one.
Yeah, and I mean, like, who does that benefit? Like, the team has moved on. It's time for us to move on and start talking about something else.
Right.
And, we talked in the last episode, the final segment was like, okay, what does Darren have to do to give himself a realistic shot at keeping this job beyond this year? Now, personally, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to go 8-0, but I will tell you that I'm going to root for 8-0 until 8-0 is no longer on the table. And the reason for that is not that I think it's going to happen, but if it does happen, I want to enjoy every single second of it. So I'm not going to cut myself off from that until they force me to be. So I'm going to be that pie in the sky idealist of like, hey, why not us? And we saw the Dolphins do it. It's happened. That was 2021. Brian Flores, head coach, he actually got fired after that season, but they started like 1-7 and finished the season 9-8, missed the playoffs. But, so and I'm not saying it's going to happen. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. But if it does happen, it would end up being like the most exciting thing that's happened to the Saints in a long, long time. So I'm not going to sit here and preempt myself from that experience. Either way, it's good stuff. And the funny thing that happened in that game is, we've sat here for 3 years and watched Saints head coach clips from the sideline go viral. And it was almost always like negatively in that way, like whether it was a keep doing what you're doing or, something dumb. It's like there was never any positive Dennis Allen moments from the sideline that people were like found endearing. It was always like, what is he doing?
Maybe the closest thing was the locker room when he did the, pop off and show him. And that was probably it.
Yeah. But even that was just like, it worked because they had won that game in the way that they did.
Yeah.
But even now people are clowning him for it. Like that's a joke now.
Right.
And there's a fine line between, leadership and corniness. Right. And a lot of it is just honesty and being yourself. And I think that's so much of why Darren Rizzi resonates with the fans, with the players, because he's just genuinely like weird and himself. Like you don't have to be normal to be liked. You just have to be you, and sometimes people just don't like you, but like whatever, as long as you are you can at least sell it to people. And I think that's what it is. Like that clip of John Ridgway coming off the field or whoever it was coming off the field after that block kick. I don't even know what that face is supposed to be. That right. Darren Rizzi face. Like, it's like he was playing like the big face, little face game. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like big face, little face. But it's just like, and like, that's kind of that endearing quality that you can look at and be like, this is funny. This is enjoyable. This is what we want. We want character. We want enthusiasm. And that's what you got. The funniest thing though happened at the end of the game, which people were genuinely concerned for Darren's health.
Well, what's funny, in the post-game show, we're like, talk to Deuce for his final comments. And then we're like, we're going to go to the podium for the head coach. And it was like, wait a minute, Alvin's up there right now. What's going on?
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about Alvin. Alvin doing his post-game press conference in a towel.
I guess they said, hey, coach is dealing with something. You got to run up there.
I think he just wanted to get it over with. I think, yeah, the coach was busy and he was like, I guess I could just do this now. And like, the funny thing is like, he went up in there in a towel and he never addressed it. Like you would think like, hey, it would be like, whatever. Like you joke about it. No, he just did it. Like it was the most normal thing in the world to do. And I think honestly, like one of the reasons that Alvin and Rizz click the way they do is because they're kind of similar in that way. Like both guys are kind of just unapologetically themselves, and in a way that's like, that's kind of a weird thing to do, Alvin, but that's such an Alvin thing to do that you're like, yeah, okay,
this is me, deal with it.
But no, so going back to the Darren Rizzi at the end of the game, he was like stumbling around and people were like, is he okay? Did he hurt himself? And he actually did explain what happened in that situation, and it's a lot funnier than I expected it to be. This is what he had to say.
I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened. I yelled at Peyton Turner with 30 seconds left because he's celebrating before the game's over. So I screamed at him, and so he's spraying water, and I ripped his ass, quite frankly. So when the game was over, he wanted to get me back. So he came up to me, and I wasn't looking. He jacked me in the back, and I got a history of stingers. So my left arm went completely numb. Literally went completely numb. So I'm sure the video has me like this. I'm looking at my thanks a lot, Peyton. So I'm fine. I just I got a little C5, C6 going for years from the old. Sound like the old guy, and I am. That's what happened. He gave me a stinger, for lack of a better phrase. I couldn't feel my arm, so my balance was screwed up. I'm fine. Listen, all the other stingers I got in my life, at least I saw them coming. I was prepared for them. This one, I never. I mean, if I'm gonna get hurt, holy cow. So
when you grabbed onto him, that was you literally just trying not to fall.
I was grabbing him like, Payne, are you effing kidding me? Right? I'm like, I'm happy too, but holy cow. So anyway, yeah, all good.
Peyton Turner taking down coaches.
And you could see it happen. It was actually on the broadcast. Like they showed Darren kind of running out onto the field, and then they cut away from him. But right before they cut away from him, you could see Peyton like shove him in the back. And that was what he's talking about, is he kind of just got him in the back, and I guess he just hit him in the perfect spot that he just went completely numb on like the right side of his body. And he kind of looked like the dog in Family Guy that doesn't have any working legs, and he just kind of like drags himself around. Like that's what he looked like in that moment. But
I wonder what position Rizzi played when he was a baller.
I'm sorry?
I wonder what position Rizzi played when he was a baller.
I'm just gonna guess and say linebacker. I mean, like he has the. Let's see. I'll look it up now. I'm gonna guess he was a linebacker who was primarily a special teamer. It doesn't even have his playing career on his Wikipedia page. What position did Darren Rizzi play? Oh, he's a tight end. He's a tight end, which makes sense because tight ends are typically a special team oriented position, you know? So he was a tight, at Rhode Island. It doesn't strike me as a tight end build. So he was a glue guy. Let's put it that way. He was an effort guy out of sense. And no, I just think that example, the example he gave about clogging the toilet the morning of the game, which I kind of want to play. Maybe we'll play. I'll play it. Let's just hear it. Let's hear Darren Rizzi talking about how the first thing he did as in his official head coaching stint at the Superdome was clog a toilet.
Stinger. Besides the stinger, and my left thumb is still coming back. Besides that, it was awesome. Listen, you guys know me. I'm a pretty open guy, so this is how my day started. I get down here to the stadium, I get down here to Superdome, I go in the head coach's locker room, which I've never used before, right? So here I am early in the morning, I go to the bathroom, and this is how my day started. I clogged the toilet. And I'm like, this is going to be a crappy day, pun intended. And so listen, I'm like, okay, this is not really a great start to the day. Here we go. And so, I'm not really feeling like a head coach of an NFL team right now. So I'm like, really? This is really how we're going to start my day? So, but listen, there was moments during the game. I'm so wrapped up in in my routine. There was moments today where like I'm almost forgetting. I'm just going through my routine, and I'm kind of forgetting that I'm the head coach a couple times. All true. And so I thought our staff did a great job. Phil Galano, Marwan Malouf, awesome job with the game management, kind of helping me through it. I thought Clint and Joe called a good game. Listen, there's plenty of stuff to get corrected, but yeah, listen, it's certainly a little surreal to see how happy the players were in the locker room. The celebration was awesome.
Yeah, and the funny thing is he didn't make the connection there that I thought he was going to make, and I almost think he intended to, and he kind of lost his train of thought there, because what he preached all week to this team, and this is something that Derek Carr talked about, Tyrann Mathieu talked about, a lot of players talked about this. One of his key messages was things aren't going to go the right way all the time. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be things that go against you. Bijan Robinson's going to rip off a 37-yard touchdown run. You can't just fold, right? Like you have to bounce back from those things. And that's where I thought he was going with that. And that's where I kind of interpreted is like the beginning of his day didn't go the way he intended it to. He's like, that felt like a bad omen. But, you just got to, okay, do what you got to do. Like, get a plunger. Like, I don't know, fix it. Fix the problem. Go play football. And that's what he did, maybe in a slightly graphic, less extreme sense. And that's what the Saints did, right? Like, there were moments in this game that if it happened 3-4 weeks ago, something Tyrann Mathieu said, if it happened 3 or 4 weeks ago, you probably would have lost, right? That drop by Alvin, and we'll talk more about Alvin as we go. If this was 3 weeks ago, I'd been like, there's no way they win that game, right? Like, and you can look back and say the long touchdown run by Saquon Barkley, right? Like the busted play for Dallas Goedert in that game, right? The pass interference on DeMario against the Panthers, the pass interference against Paulson Adebo against the Falcons, right? Like these are moments that it's like, you fell and you never got back up from. And I think that's what, if there was a difference in this game, that was it. It was that will to say, hey, okay, bounce the F back. Like you can't sit there and feel sorry for yourself. You have to show some pride and say, hey, we still have this game in our hands. And they did. And that's the story of that game. Like the offense asked the defense to do way too much at the end of that game, but the defense stood up and they did what you had hoped this defense was going to be able to do in the season, which was win you games. Because, the offense put up a number that you could defend. And the difference in this game is the defense was able to defend it. And in other games where you had that opportunity, they weren't able to do it. That's the case against the Eagles. That's the case in week 4 against the Falcons. This case against the Panthers. You had the lead in the fourth quarter of all of those games, and it was surrendered. That wasn't the case in this game. And so I just think that messaging landed. And, basically every bit of messaging from Darren Rizzi seems to have landed. Like, so many things that he did this week feel like it was received the right way. It had the intended result. It had the intended consequence. It had the intended emotional impact on the team. And you saw them put that on the field. And so for at least 1 week, the Saints are feeling good about themselves. And the Saints fans, I hope, are enjoying that.
No, you talked about, obviously, we saw some things this season that in that situation when Alvin dropped the ball, I definitely was like, oh crap, I can't believe Falcons are going to get a chance here. Please hold. And we unfortunately seen in the early goings against Atlanta, against the Eagles, where they weren't able to, but everything was flipped this week. So maybe that was part of the fallout too, from things that the outcome that we were so used to from this season got flipped to. Whatever the case, all over, just so glad to have that 7-game weight off the Saints' back, and hopefully now you can parlay that into 2 in a row. Can't get a win streak going without one first, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like, this team was never going to be a 12-win, 13-win team, right? Like, the ceiling for this team was below that. That said, this is not a bottom 5 team from a talent perspective, from a leadership perspective, right?
Right. To me, they weren't a 5-6 win team, and I'm like, oh crap, are we heading that way?
But yeah, but that's how you end up as a 5-6 win team, is you lose the plot, you lose hope. and that's what became very clear over the last several weeks. Not necessarily the first few weeks of that losing streak, but the last few weeks of that losing streak. It was not about a team incapable of winning. It was about a team that didn't look like it believed it was capable of winning. And in every opportunity, it was kind of like you were waiting for that other shoe to drop. Like, we're going to lose this game somehow. Let's see what happens. Let's see what it is this week that loses us this game. And, when you're going to a backup quarterback and he's a rookie and he just can't sustain any offense. And, that's frustrating. When your defense is blowing leads, that's frustrating. When you're going against the Panthers and you can't get a win, although they've won 2 in a row now. They're the hottest team in the NFL, baby. It's tough, but I just felt like so much of what was ailing this team was mental. And I talked to MVS after the game, which, fun fact, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has like an entire array of diamond jewelry that is like MVS. Like, he has MVS earrings and like a big ass MVS chain, which have to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And he was just rocking them, because I wondered, does he embrace that nickname, or is it just what people call him? No, that's his brand. He has a brand and he knows what it is. And we'll talk more about MVS. But one thing that I asked him, and Willie Gay talked about this last week, is, these are guys who showed up this year, and MVS showed up 2 weeks ago, right? But they've spent the last 2 years, and for Willie Gay's part of it, more than 2 years, but for MVS's part of it, the last 2 years with the Chiefs, winning back-to-back Super Bowls. He spent the beginning part of his career with the Packers, a team that always found ways to win. It was it's a team that you look at and say, that's a winning organization. His final year there, they went to the NFC Championship, right? That was a team that lost 38-3 to the Saints week 1, and then bounced back, found a way to win a lot of games, got to the NFC Championship, lost to the Bucks. But what he said and what Willie said, and they kind of echoed each other, is, it's like, I know what a winning organization looks like. I know what this is supposed to be. I know what you want practices to feel like, what you want team meetings to feel like, what you want a game plan installed to look like. And the first 2 weeks he was here, he didn't feel like that was what it was supposed to be. And then this week you started to look at it and be like, no, this is the type of energy. This is the type of coaching where everyone gets coached the same and everyone is held to the same level of accountability. And that becomes clear to the players, right? And they buy in, and suddenly these games that you might have lost a few weeks ago are going to go your way. And the problem is, at this point in the season, you're not going to go 8-0. That's unreasonable, right? But you might find a way to go, 5-2 over your final 7 games. And unfortunately for this season, that's not going to be enough, because of so many of the failures that occurred earlier in the season. But that's what this team was always capable of doing, was being that, 9-10 win team winning the division, probably. I mean, this division isn't running away, right? The Falcons are now winning it at 6-4. Definitely not, running away with anything in that division. The Bucs are 4-6. The Saints are 1 game behind them. So both the Saints and Panthers are 3-7. So, you look at it and say, okay, this is what you wanted to see. It's obviously later than you would have ever possibly hoped, but that's when you make that coaching change, that's what you're hoping will happen. And it seems like it has. So,
actually early on, we were like jazzed up after week 2, but then everything came crashing down.
Well, yeah, and I think when things are going well, that's not when you get the measure of how your organization is structured and whether things are being done the right way. It's when things start going poorly. It's when adversity hits. How do you bounce back from that? And the Saints in weeks 1 and 2, they didn't have any adversity whatsoever. They won those games wire to wire. They blew them out. So you didn't even have to experience, okay, what if we're behind in the second half? What if we play poorly in the first half? Look at the Lions yesterday. The Lions are a perfect example. Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions in that game. The Lions won. They were behind 23-7 at halftime. They won the game 26-23. Now Jake Moody hit, he made a pair of field goals by, the narrowest margin I think I've ever seen 2 field goals go in by. But that's what winning teams do. They find ways to win. Now the Chiefs, on the other hand, I don't know how, their 9-0 is the most remarkable thing I've ever seen, in the sense that they could just as easily be a 500 team if some of these breaks didn't go their way. If Isaiah Likely's foot is a half inch shorter, if the Bengals don't get a terrible pass interference call in that final drive, if the Broncos, if Will Lutz doesn't get a kicked blocked from 38 yards out.
There's some strong witchcraft in that Kansas City locker room.
It's bizarre. But, but that's what this Saints team had for so long. And that's why this last year plus, with the final 5 games of last season notwithstanding, has felt so bleak. Is you could see that feeling actively ebbing away. It's like a tide going out on a beach of that's that winning culture where you feel like you go into every game with the idea of, we're going to find a way to win. We might not be at our best. We might make mistakes. Things might not go our way. We're going to find a way. And that feeling has just kind of gone and gone and gone and gone to the point that it was where is it? How do you even get back to that? And so we'll see how it goes. That interim coach bump is a real thing, and we don't need to harp on it for much longer. But so how long can you sustain that?
Right.
Either way, winning a game and doing it against the Falcons, for Darren Rizzi's sake, he's getting a lot of pub right now. And whether he wins the job with the Saints, I think this is going to be a run that makes him a lot more seriously considered in those head coaching interviews. So, good for Darren. Again, he's a likable guy. We've known him for a while, and I think most Saints fans probably were unaware of the special teams coordinator's personality, because I don't think most fans know the personality of their team special teams coordinator.
Right.
But you're seeing it now, and I think people are responding to it. So that's, good for him, good for Rizz.
And obviously, I think Rizz is known throughout the NFL, but for those teams that might have not known this guy as much, if you're going to see the passion from him and the players that are playing with, and the Saints do opt to pass, like you said, it's a great resume builder where someone might go, maybe we should look at this guy for our next head coach. All the good feels right now. It is just 1 game for sure, but it's definitely better than where we were. I'll take, like I said, Victory Monday. We haven't tasted the sweet taste of it in so long. September 15th, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I feel like most NFL teams would have been like, oh, we love him as our special teams coordinator. But there's a very wide chasm between that and, yeah, let's make him the next head coach of our franchise, right? Yeah. And it's so difficult to jump across that. And an interim opportunity like this can be kind of a rope bridge. You're not going to get across every time. Sometimes it might collapse, or you might fall off halfway over. But it's like you've thrown the rope across, and now you're giving yourself a real opportunity. So we'll see. Anything else you want to add on that front before we move on?
No, just something about them Jersey guys. They get it done.
They get it done. But all right, this is Inside Black and Gold. I am Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're going to come back, hit a 3 up, 3 down segment, as we talked about at the top. That's going to be the end of this podcast episode. This YouTube episode is going to go on a lot longer than that, but we're going to save that mailbag edition to post on Tuesday morning for the podcast feed to give people kind of more, I don't know, some more digestible episodes in that feed. I don't know. We'll see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to our original strategy. We're just trying some different things. But anyway, Saints 3-7. They took down the Falcons. And
you're doing that Rizzi influence
scenario,
there. Different things.
Worst case scenario, you can look at this and say, the Falcon fans are mad today. They are upset. They are sad. They're like, what the hell? The Saints can't win a game. They can't win a freaking game, but they could still beat us. And that's what you want. Cam Jordan can't get a sack against 31 different NFL teams, 30 different NFL teams. Actually, 31 because he can't get a sack against the Saints either. But when the Falcons come to town, it's a different ballgame. Either way, let's wrap up that segment. This is Inside Black and Gold. We'll be right back. Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. We're going to hit 3 up, 3 down in this segment. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. You know, a lot of good things happened yesterday, but let's start with the bad because that'll be quicker, and I just want to get through it before we move forward. I don't have a ton of negative things to say about that game. But Steve, is there anything you want to throw out before I hit my list?
I'm ticked off of the usage of Taysom Hill because of my fantasy team suffering.
Yeah, no, that's on my list. And
I put him at tight end. It was like a big old nothing from this game. Not impressive.
Well, he should have had an 88-yard touchdown or an 82-yard touchdown if Foster isn't holding there. But although if Foster isn't holding, he probably gets tackled. So whatever you want to say. It was a 36-yard gain for a tight end. That's not a terrible day. Like you can easily bagel with a tight end. So you know if you're looking at a bottom, if you're looking streaming a tight end, and you know you're like, oh, I could have Isaiah Likely or Taysom Hill. You're not mad, but. No, I agree with you completely. That's on my list for sure. And it's not even Taysom in how he played.
Right.
It's the usage of Taysom. Because it sure felt like Clint Kubiak he touched the ball 3 times on the opening drive. He had to carry for 6 yards, then he had to carry for 4 yards, and he had to carry for 3 yards. And then the Saints decided to get aggressive. Darren said going into that game, he's like, I'm going to be aggressive in this game. I'm going to the first 4th down we hit past midfield. If it's 4th and 3 or shorter, we're going right. He just wanted to set the tone for the game. And I appreciate conviction. Even if I don't agree with the decision, I appreciate the conviction in a decision. And I actually did agree with that decision. They gave the ball to Taysom Hill. He got stopped. And at that point, it just felt like Clint lost confidence in the Taysom part of his playbook.
Right.
And that's frustrating to me because it's like, I know the Falcons can't stop him. The Saints know the Falcons can't stop him. The Falcons know the Falcons can't stop him. But you let him off the hook. He got one short pass, which I think it was more of a check down than a design in a couple series later. Then he did not touch the ball again until the Saints' final drive. It was a 4-yard carry, which the Falcons shut down the run game for the entirety of the second half. Like that 4-yard carry felt like it was 15 yards, and it set up what should have been a game-clinching touchdown on a 3rd and 6 to Alvin Kamara. But I think part of the issue is like we saw this with Pete Carmichael for a while. Like Pete Carmichael, I thought figured out how to use Taysom Hill, but there was games where it was like, why aren't you using him? Like, and I think over the course of 2 years, he got better at it. But I think this was one of the first kind of forays into Clint letting the game script erase Taysom Hill from his plans. And, you didn't sustain a lot of drives. And I think if you sustained more drives, you would have got Taysom Hill more involved. But I think Taysom Hill is a drive starter. He can also be a drive extender. But I want him to get the ball early in drives to kind of set the tone on a drive. And you don't have to do it every time, but 0 times is not right. And you're talking about a majority of this game, he did not touch the ball. And that's a problem to me. And I think when Clint goes back and he looks at how this game went and how the run game was really ineffective in the second half anyway, and it really kept the Falcons alive, I think he's going to be a little disappointed with how he called that. And I would expect him to correct that.
You know, I like to see some good things out of a guy like a Kevin Austin, or even Jordan Mims' usage got a little bump. But, man, I thought going into this game, we talked about it. You know, I know, fans know, Taysom's the dirty bird killer. And so I figured he was going to be a big part of what this team was going to do, along with Alvin. Obviously, those are your two best weapons.
And he spammed him in the first matchup, right? Like he got 2 touchdowns in that game and then got hurt. Maybe that's in the back of his mind is, hey, I need to be careful with his usage because we want to make sure he's around. But you know, you need to use him for it to matter. And I just don't...
Jeff, we're not saving Taysom for nothing.
Yeah. But no, I didn't like how Clint managed that situation. So hopefully that changes going forward. The other thing, AK's hands, man, he described it as this is AK talking about that drop after the game, which I think he sums it up as well as anybody.
It was just up there, man. It was one of them easy ones. That was like, I went to the sideline and I told Coach Dub, I was like, that was like the lamest thing I've ever done in my life, playing football. But it hurt me because I could have iced it. It would have been, that would have been good. But you know, we still won, so I'm good. It is what it is.
What do you think as a defense takes over the Hamptons?
I'm good. I was just mad that I put them back on the field, really. You know, I wasn't concerned with them going back out and doing what they had to do. I just wish I would have just iced it so we could just, you know, ride off into the sunset, but still did.
How didn't we just take a shower and hit the podcast today after seeing Alvin, Jeff?
He's just sitting up there in a towel. Like, what the hell, man? But no, and I don't want to emphasize one play in what I thought was a solid game. You know, he had that really nice gain on a screen pass where he just kind of did his Alvin thing and he like picked through the defense and was really good. But you know, if the defense doesn't hold up on that final drive, we're looking at that play and being like, the Saints found a way to lose, and their best player is the reason they found a way to lose, and that's frustrating. The Saints defense made sure that wasn't the conversation today, but you know, that's a moment that you need Alvin to deliver. And he didn't. So he's definitely on my down.
Especially it was his day. Yeah, obviously. You know,
everything else went the right way for him.
Right.
Except for that. He also didn't, I wouldn't say he ran the ball particularly well. I mean, and that's not true. I wouldn't say the Saints were able to generate much in the run game.
Right.
And I thought he did run the ball well in moments and spurts, but the second half of that game, he was just unable to get anything going. And, but yeah, he did set the franchise rushing record. I thought he was going to do it on his first carry. He got 11 yards. He needed 12. But he did get it the next play. So, either way, you know, that's my down. He's also on my up list, so I can't be too mad about it.
No, like I said, that was a big, like everyone holding their breath, I felt like after that drop, because like I said, to start things off, it was like, oh no, not again in this late game situation where we're not, forget even tying the game with a field goal. I wasn't worried about that because Koo was done for in that game. I was like, what if they score a touchdown here at the end and pull out this win?
Yeah, I felt like they were going to lose in that moment, and I was pleasantly surprised when they didn't. Now, and it's funny because you look at it and you say like, hey, how do you go win a game? And I thought the play call was great. I thought it was a perfect call in that moment, and Derek delivered a perfect ball. It's like you can't blame anything but, oh man, just watch the ball go. It's like when Tyron dropped that interception against the Broncos. It's like it's almost too easy. Like it was so easy that he lost concentration. But
and he didn't even mention. Obviously, I know Alvin's hand isn't 100% either. I'm not trying to make excuses for the dude. He certainly didn't do it for himself.
Yeah, not on that play. Like I brought that up over the course of the last several games in terms of like there've been some drops that I look at and be like, I wonder if his hand had something to do with that. I'm not giving him that out on this play. It was just bad. It was just bad football. And he knows that. Like I'm not saying anything he's not going to say about himself. He went over to the bench and was just like, what the hell is wrong with me? But now one more guy that on the down list before we get to the good stuff. And as someone who I would say has been at least part-time the conductor of the Alontae Taylor hype train, I do have to pump the brakes a little bit because I thought I don't want to say struggled in that game, but it was he did not make the plays that I needed him to make in that game. And, and it's become a trend of like, he's doing the really difficult stuff well, which is being in perfect position in coverage. But he's not finishing off plays. Like there was a 33-yard pass to Darnell Mooney where it's like, how? How did that ball get through? Like, you're right there, though. Your hand is an inch away from the ball. You're just not able to make that play. Same thing happened on the Kyle Pitts on the opposite side of the field. I think that one he kind of lost his footing at the last second, and Kyle Pitts is a big dude. So he made a really nice catch. But it's another example of like you did the hard part. You got in position and you didn't make a play. And we saw it happen against the Chargers too. Ladd McConkey's touchdown. Like, I still don't know how he got that ball. Like, Alontae was in perfect coverage and he just didn't get it. You saw 2 pass interference penalties. The first one, okay. The second one was bad. It was on 3rd and 2. And again, it's an example of you've done the hard part. You have created a scenario where he physically can't catch this pass. He's basically out of bounds already. Just wall off, turn your head for the ball, and that's a punt. And you forced a 4th down. Instead, he kind of just generates too much contact, runs through him, and Darnell Mooney wins that exchange because he understood how to draw a penalty, and Alontae was unable to avoid the penalty. And those are the things that, I'm still in on Alontae. I still think he's going to be your number 1 corner. But I think you saw in that game some of the stuff he really needs to work on, which is kind of point of the catch, point of attack, efficiency, and getting those little details right at the end of a play, right? Because you do everything right, and then you can't finish it off. And that, it was frustrating because I think Alontae has all the talent in the world. And like, you can't teach talent. You can teach detail. So I think he'll get better at that. Again, you have to remember, he spent the last year plus working inside, working in the slot. Right. Now he's outside and he's kind of relearning all of that again. And so, I think that's part of that is kind of getting those little things back down. But I don't think this is one of his better games.
That's exactly where I was going to go with this, Jeff. I was going to say it was a down game for him for sure, but he is getting reacclimated to his former position after, just I've got to be entrenched in learning the slot and dominating there. So I'm going to give him a pass just because the Saints got the win, at least in this game, but definitely need to see better output from him. And I think we will. I'm an Alontae believer too, and I'm not so concerned over this, I won't say abysmal performance, but it was definitely kind of made you raise your eyebrow a bit, like what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and I don't think, then it's easy to get caught up in those like 4 plays and not look at the rest of the game, right? Because I don't think he played terribly. I thought his body language was really positive on the sideline. Like in the past, I've seen Alontae come over to the sideline and kind of like sulk and have like, I remember against the Chargers, the Rams last year, Jonathan Abram had to come over and like be like, dude, like, come on. And I don't think you saw that in this game, and because I was watching him, like I was curious how he was going to handle some of those things. I thought he did well. And like, that's as a team leader, which is what you need your top corner to be. You need him to be, obviously you have Tyrod in that room, but you do need him to be somewhat of a leader. I thought he handled it well.
For sure. And like I said, we'll have to see the elevation of Alontae, I fully expect, in his getting used to playing outside again. I'll chalk it up to that for now.
Yeah, I agree. And that's all I had. Is there anything else you want to point to before we move to the good stuff?
Not really. No, not in the down part for sure. I feel like you said, it's hard to come away down after this game. It wasn't really a question till the end. And I guess though, thanks in large part to the Falcons kicker.
Yeah. And John Ridgway. You got to give John Ridgway credit
for sure. Right.
Big paw on that. Someone asked him after the game, like, what'd you see on that play? And like, what do you mean? What did he see? He just went up and like, I'm going to try to hit the ball.
I saw a guy try kick ball. I put hand up to block.
You're right. I tried to get as big as possible and I got it. But it was a nice moment by him and it led to that Rizzi face. But no, so some of the good stuff that happened, right? So we talked AK, the hands, not great. The lame hands, whatever. Also on my up list is AK, the leader, AK, the team leader, the guy you rally around and the guy who's going to help bring this thing back to where it needs to be.
Also known as the franchise's leading rusher all time.
Yeah, and now the best running back in Saints history, no offense to Deuce or Mark, like I don't think it's really even a debate. Like the dude is just so talented and
For sure.
he's not really slowing down. Like again, like you talk about 29, age 29, oh, it's a cliff for running backs. If you have something to point to where you're like, oh, he can't do this now and he used to be able to do this, tell me what it is. Tell me. Because I'm not sure.
It's I don't know, just all around as the player, as the motivator, the teammate that you want, that the franchise wants, the players latch onto, all around. And you know, you didn't see as much of it last year, but you saw those kind of matrixy moves from Alvin this season where you're like, how did he do that? How did he come out of that? And playing through a lot. We know that too. So yeah, I can't say enough good about Alvin and happy to see him bouncing back so big this year because it hasn't been pretty the last couple seasons.
Yeah, and they made him a team captain. They did that for a reason. And again, you know, everything Rizzi does, I'm like, man, he just gets it. He feels it. He understands like the things to do, the buttons to push in certain moments. And it's like, yeah, that's the right call to make. And this is what Rizzi said when he was asked about making Alvin a team captain this week.
No, that was coach's decision. That was my decision. I just thought, listen, I thought Alvin's presented great leadership all year. You know, think what he means to this city, think what he means to this organization. You know, think about the way he's played this year. I just thought he's handled, you know, the week very, very well, and I just thought it was the right thing to do. And he was, you know, again, I mentioned it's easy to kind of just go on and do your own thing. Alvin Kamara might have been the guy that bought in the most of the whole entire team. And so when the younger guys and those guys see the leadership of the team, when those guys see that, you know, they follow suit. I just thought it was the right thing to do. He's been acting like a captain, practicing like a captain, playing like a captain. So why not make him a captain?
Amen to that, Rizz.
And it's just like, I don't know, like it makes sense. And he's embraced it. You know, Alvin has always been kind of the quiet leader. And when Drew was here, he could be that. And I think the last few years has been an adjustment for him of trying to learn how to be more of a vocal leader. And I think he struggles sometimes because he's the type of guy, you know, because to a certain extent, for a functioning NFL team to do what it needs to do, you need to buy into the party line. You need to, whether you necessarily agree with it or not, everyone has to pull the rope in the same direction. And I think what Alvin has struggled with, particularly over the last 3 years, is he's always going to be the guy that calls out bullshit when he sees it. And that's helpful in certain ways, but it doesn't always lead to winning. And I think he's been trying to balance that. And that's, you know, but he's always a guy that's he doesn't even know how to lie. He doesn't know how to be anyone but himself, just like Darren. And so I think that's why, like, when this change had to happen, it was so obvious that it had to happen. He was one of the bigger voices in being like, no, this is correct. This is what we need to be doing. And again, just like I talked about with MVS and Willie Gay, you know, the Saints obviously didn't win a Super Bowl, but they won the most games in the NFL over a 4-year stretch from 2017 to 2020, right? Like that doesn't happen without a winning culture. So he knows what it looks like too. And he also has seen it go from what it had to be to what it was. And so he's one of the few people on this roster, you know, guys like Cam, guys like DeMario, they also know what that needs to be too. And so I think he's just like, no, I'm fed up. I'm going to be more vocal about getting this back to the standard. And whether that's going to help you bridge anything this year or whether that's going to help you next year and beyond, we'll see. But he's going to be around for it. So you might as well let him lead the crew, let him lead the charge. And so I thought that was a good call.
I missed it, Jeff. Did anybody ask Rizz or Kamara how the hell he wasn't a captain to begin with?
I mean, it's just a team. It's a team voted thing.
Right.
I don't think it's, you know, it's anyone. You know, they made Taysom a captain. You know, and I think that's that role of like kind of the running back room captain. But I think he had been a captain previously.
Yeah, it just seemed like when it was like, oh, you know, seeing before the game and Alvin Kamara has been named a captain, and you're like, wait a minute, he just was?
Yeah, I need to go back and see whether he was a captain before the Vegas incident. I wouldn't be surprised.
I got you right.
If that had a role in it, just from an optics perspective.
Sure.
And from that point on, maybe he just, because he's also not going to be a guy who campaigns, like make me a captain, please.
But he just seems to be, like we mentioned, the players are voting on this, and he just seems a guy that everybody gravitates to.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool too.
Right, he's cool. He hangs out at NASCAR events, not even during football.
I think he's got what the kids would call aura.
The Rizz. He's got the Rizz.
He does have the Rizz. But all right, let's move forward. The second thing on my list of the three up, not necessarily perfect defense. I thought the run defense was particularly sketchy in this game, but that was the case. That's been the case against the Falcons every matchup. So I although the week 18 last year, I don't think they ran the ball well, but like you kind of bake in like, okay, they're going to run the ball and they're good at it. They run the ball against everybody. So you have to kind of withstand that. And at times I thought they did, at times I thought they didn't. What did Bijan end up with in this game? It was a lot.
I just know it was like everybody ended up with like 6 yards a carry, basically.
Yeah, Bijan had 116 yards on 20 carries. He had 2 touchdowns, that long of 37. But I thought there were moments in this game where I was like, okay, that's the run defense I'm looking for. And you saw moments where it was there. Like they stopped him 3 times at the goal line.
That was impressive.
They obviously got in on 4th down, but I can't that's not the type of thing you've seen from this team from a run defense perspective. And that's so much of that is will and want to in those moments. Tyler Algier, the mistake the Falcons made is not running the ball more. Like, let's be real. If they ran the ball exclusively, I almost feel like they would have won this game. He had 11 carries for 59 yards, 5.4. They still have not figured out how to tackle him. Just like the Saints have not figured out how to tackle Taysom Hill. The Falcons have not figured out how to tackle Taysom Hill. The Saints have not figured out how to tackle Tyler Algier. Like every time he got the ball, I'm like, oh God, it's another 5-6 yard run minimum. But
was it on the pod or Sports Talk that I'm thinking that someone described him? Oh no, maybe that was Carolina Hubbard, who was described as the bowling ball with razor blades.
J.K. Dobbins, maybe.
I thought it was either Hubbard or Algier, but I'll have to go back and look too.
Yeah, I don't know, but it makes sense, right? Because he just beats you up. But what this defense did that, you don't have to be perfect, and that's the thing. Like you don't have to win every single play, but you do have to win in the big moments, and you have to get those game-changing plays to keep points off the board, or to force a punt, or to force a long 3rd down. That's a sort of situation. And I thought the Saints in this game, they got those plays and those kind of momentum swinging moments that we haven't seen them get them in the past. Now, Peyton Turner, if you go back and watch his sack, it looked a lot more impressive in the moment. And when you go back and watch it, you can see the right tackle kind of get his leg hooked by the right guard. And I think he did. I think Peyton did bull rush him, but he was already on his way down by the time Peyton got to him. He did turn that corner well. He had a good bend, and he got a straight line at the quarterback, and that's why he was able to blow up Kirk. And, at the end of the day, getting a big hit on a quarterback without drawing a flag is a lot harder than it used to be. So you got to give him credit for that. His second strip sack of Kirk Cousins in as many games. It would be nice if the Saints could recover one of them. But it was a moment that it forced a field goal, and John Ridgway ended up blocking it. So you could say, hey, that sack kept points off the board. Fast forward, 4th quarter, Falcons driving for a potential tying field goal. They're about in range. They're close. Cam Jordan breaks through for his first sack of the season, just kind of walks back the left tackle right into Kirk Cousins' lap, almost gets a strip sack. He was going for the ball. He was raking at it, gets him to the ground. First sack of the season, 24th against the Falcons in his career. Big moment, forces another field goal. That ball, unnaturally bends to the right. I still don't it was like there was a gust of wind in the Superdome. And it just kind of clanks off the upright. And
I'll tell you what, we felt it in the press box. The air conditioning was blowing. It seemed extra strong this week.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. It did. It just kind of hooked at the last second because it was going straight and then it wasn't. It was like, okay. It's like it had a homing beacon for that upright. But, that sack is what created that longer field goal. And maybe if that's a 10-yard closer field goal, or they convert a first down and they go in and score a touchdown, take the lead. Like that sack in that moment is what created that difficult scoring scenario. And the Saints and the Falcons couldn't take advantage. Next drive, the Saints offense is unable to do anything. And it's the Falcons going downfield. Who is it this time? It's Tyrann Mathieu cutting off a pass over the middle of the field. He's going to Drake London on a dig. Tyrann reads it. He knows they're probably not going to want to go over the top in that moment. He jumps it. Honey Badger takes what he wants. I heard Bobby say that, and I appreciate it because I don't even know if he knows what he's referencing. But interception is 36 of his career, right? Like that's what he does better than anybody else. And you got the ball back in that moment. I thought in that moment that was going to be the game sealing play. It wasn't because of Alvin's drop. But fast forward, next drive, who is it this time? It's Chase Young getting around the edge, strip sack. They lost 9 yards, 10 yards, right? And that's the play. Like they had a couple more plays after that, but that's the play that ended the game effectively.
Another one. It's like, why can't we get the ball?
Right. But even then it was like, okay, they used their final timeout. So that eliminated the chances of a field goal really. And because they would have had to get a first down first of all. Yeah. So maybe they completed something downfield, came up and spiked it. But that basically is the play that won you the game. And that's what makes me happy in terms of stock up in this game is so many hands were in that equation. Like so many people had a hand in making those big plays. It wasn't one guy having a great game. It was 5 different players or so all contributing in big moments to keep points off the board. And that's what you need. That's what a good defense has. It's not one star player. It's not one guy locking down. It's not one Marshawn Lattimore. It's everyone making their mark in big moments when they get the opportunity. And that's why, like, when I look at this defense and I say it should be a better defense than it is, it's that because they have playmakers at so many different positions. And that's how you win a game like that.
Shout out to the return of Will Harris.
Yeah, he had a rough moment on that Bijan touchdown run. And he came off the field and threw his helmet down on the ground, but he also had a hit stick moment early in the game that actually was big because it stopped, I think, Tyler Algier 1 yard shy of the first down. They didn't get it, so they had to punt early in the game. But no, that's a good segue because just more on the defense, like one thing that I noticed that doesn't usually happen, Demario Davis between the third and fourth quarters, he gathered the entire defense into like a circle on the sideline and gave him a hype speech. And I asked a few people what he was kind of talking about. And, he said, hey, this was the messaging all week for the defense. It was like, we've played good defense in the first 3 quarters of the game all season long. But where has that defense been in the fourth quarter? And, I have a clip from Tyrann from his interview I did with him when he was coming off the field. So let's listen to that.
All right, Tyrann Mathieu, 7 games, 7 long weeks. There's a win today. Just what does that mean just to get that off your chest?
Man, I'm just happy for this organization. Obviously we all been through a lot, man, and it hasn't really gone our way, but, man, I'm proud of the fight. I'm proud of our new head coach. He really set the tone this week. He brought some good energy. He brought some excitement, and he found a way to motivate us.
Before the fourth quarter, I saw Demario gather everyone in a circle and kind of give everyone a hype speech. What was his message there, and did y'all deliver on that?
Well, the truth is that, we played pretty good defense for 3 quarters in just about every game. But the 4 quarters, that's when the games kind of got away from us. Couldn't close out, couldn't finish, missing tackles, dropping intercepts. I thought today that was more like us.
Nothing better than a Jeff post-game interview because it means there's a win, and I get to hear that brass band in the background, baby.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I got to do one of those. But no, I mean that's been the messaging. Is like they've played good defense first 3 quarters of games. You look at the Eagles game, you look at the Falcons game. But in those big moments, they've fallen flat, and that's what Demario kind of got everyone together to just deliver that message. And you could tell like people were getting it, were hearing it, and they delivered on it. Right? If the Falcons put any points up on the board in that fourth quarter. The Saints, I don't know if they lose, but if they kick a field goal, maybe the Saints go and score. I don't know. But either way, like that's the difference in that game is the defense showed up and the leadership on the defense is valuable. And that's what, I asked Darren about that. I won't play the clip because we're already going long here. But, he said that he walked over to do what Demario was doing. He was like, I'm going to gather the defense. I'm going to hype him up. I'm going to give him. And then he was like, oh, Demario's got it. Okay. And he just walked away. He's like, I'm not going to do any better than they're going to do. Right. Because I think he said he's the best leader he's ever seen. And when that messaging is landing, when these guys are going to go out there and play on their heads, stand on their heads and keep points off the board, you're a tough team to beat, and that's what they did. So that's it's all very long-winded, stuck up, but I really appreciated that performance by the defense.
No, I was definitely the pass rush to me. I was like, finally, I actually I witnessed it. A lot of guys showed up. Chase Young, Cam Jordan. It was like, holy crap! What goes well, of course, for playing the Falcons, a Cam Jordan sack. Great to see him, and you could feel like a weight from him. Even like, finally, I got home, and I know he got more snaps this game than usual.
He did. He played more in this game, and he delivered on it. Okay, a couple more things. MVS, just a fast guy, man. He's just fast, just a fast dude. And that the first touchdown, the 40-yard touchdown, he just outran Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. Like they did not get there. And AJ Terrell, it's funny when you watch the clip back because you can see AJ Terrell, Justin Simmons, and Jesse Bates all running as fast as they can to try to get to him. And the ball is just dropping into a bucket right where it needs to be. You can give Derek Carr crap for a lot of stuff. You cannot criticize his deep balls because two pretty ones this game. Like, he doesn't have arm talent. And I'm like, guys, he's got elite arm talent. That's why he's here, right? That's why he keeps getting chances, because he can make throws like that. And you go back and you watch that, that's a 40-yard touch pass. Like, it's basically, it's such a weird, like, when I watch him throw it, I'm like, there's no way with the way he delivered that, the ball is going to get down where it needs to go. And not only does it, it's like Marquez didn't even have to adjust for the ball. And it was just like a 40-yard, like, doink.
Even the Cajun cannon, he looked at me and goes, "Oh, Drew can't do that."
Well, that's the thing. Like, and he makes some of those throws that you're just like, wow. And then he'll do some stupid stuff, and you're like, God damn it. But
damn it,
like,
Derek.
The arm talent, like one of the reasons Rashid Shaheed has been as effective as he has over the last 2 seasons is because Derek does deliver that deep ball as well as just about anybody in the NFL. And he did it again to Marquez in the second quarter. And one thing Derek said that I think is 100% correct is the person who should be the happiest about seeing those big shot plays down the sidelines is Alvin Kamara, is the running back who now probably isn't dealing with as loaded of a box because the defense has to adjust and account for that. And, whether that's something that they can hit on routinely, the threat's there, and people are going to see that and be like, oh, okay, I guess I have to defend that. Because until you did it once, people are going to be like, all right, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, you've seen it, so now you got to defend it. And they look good doing it. Like, it looked like they've been throwing to each other for years,
In my buddy group chat, a lot of out-of-town folks, obviously, that my Jersey boys, and one of the guys hits me with, when the heck did the Saints get Marquez Valdes-Scantling?
2 years later than they wanted to. Now
you understand 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like you can see though, like why they were enamored by his skill set, because it's another thing Derek said is it's not just that he's fast; he's also 6'4".
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to throw a deep ball to a guy that's taller than everyone down there. Like, that was one of the issues I had with Deontay Hardy as a deep threat. It's like you have to deliver that ball perfectly, and he can only be a ball that you throw over the top and he runs under. Like, you can't really throw a back shoulder fade to him because he's just going to have a hard time going up and getting it. It's 5'7", and Rashid, I think, has ample size to do that. But then you have a guy who's 6'4" running a 4.3 40, and that's tough to match up with.
It does not compute to me how Buffalo and Josh Allen couldn't take advantage.
It just didn't work out. Mark,
for whatever reason,
talked about that in the locker room, and he said it was a mutual thing. It just wasn't working. Like, the offense wasn't working. He wasn't happy in the offense. They weren't thrilled with how he was operating.
We'll take it.
And they kind of came to a mutual, like, they traded for Amari Cooper, and he was like, hey, I'm not really fitting in here. And they're like, they just kind of said, hey, go find a spot. And he was like, I agree. And so, yeah, I mean, like, the talent's still there. You could see, like, he can still get it done. So that should bode well for them in the next, however long.
No, obviously the win, getting there was part of it, and just the excitement from those 2 throws to MVS. Actually 3, because there was a touchdown. Obviously, it was a short pass, but it was a scoring play. But man, you felt that roar, that energy from the crowd, and just overall a pleasant Sunday in the Superdome since we're there all freaking day.
Yeah. Well, when this offense has been humming over the last 2 years, when it's been at its best over the last 2 years, you've been able to hit shots like that.
Yeah.
And because even if you only hit 1 or 2, it opens up a lot underneath for everybody else. And that game did not go particularly well in the second half from an efficiency perspective on offense. You weren't able. I think they took MVS away, and you weren't able to sustain anything. The run game wasn't particularly effective, but it's a good sign that you might be able to do that a little bit more. A couple other guys, Kevin Austin, I thought had a very
for sure
underappreciated game.
Yeah,
he only had 2 catches, but they were 2 really nice catches. The first one was a really nice hands catch on a 3rd and 14 that he converted a first down on. Not an easy grab whatsoever. One of the best catches I've seen a Saints wide receiver make in terms of difficulty level. From there's been a lot of big plays by wide receivers, but not like, okay, he's going up over his head, he's spinning, he's getting his feet down. Like, that's an NFL catch, man, by a player who hasn't really been given a shot by anybody.
Just got him from the practice squad. We called him up.
And then he had a nice catch for 22 yards where he kind of just sat in the middle of his zone. Like that's a subtle thing that you might not really even notice when he's doing it, but like that's understanding when to slow down, when to throttle up, where to sit, where to find space. That's a lot of times the difference between an easy completion for a first down and, a tipped ball for an interception. Or like Foster, there was a ball to Foster where, people complain about hospital balls, right? But then they complain, oh, he threw it behind Foster. Well, he's throwing it behind Foster because he wants to slow down because he doesn't want to lead him right into a hit. And I think if Foster had that one back, he would have throttled down a little bit, sat in space. That's what Kevin did on that play, which is impressive. He's also physically what you look for in a receiver. He's built. He's like 6'3", like 215. He's got big arms. He's strong. And that's the Saints don't have a lot of receivers like that. So I think you're going to see them sign him to the active roster at some point in the near future. And, maybe this week, if they feel like, someone's going to see that tape and try to snatch him away. But I was impressed by him. And I think he's going to, like Mason Tipton was the guy in the offseason everyone was talking about. He's struggled to make an impact, right? He has not made plays like the 2 that Kevin Austin was able to make in that game in his first chance to do so. So I think he deserves some credit.
No, I love the fact you gave a shout out to him for sure because, the guy was just on the practice squad, gets called up in a big situation, coaching change, the bright lights of having to take on an NFC South rival, and came up big. Like you said, it was just 2 catches, but that one catch you're talking about on the sideline, going out of bounds, getting the feet down, reaching up to get the ball, just really impressive from the youngster.
Yeah, Rizzi even said, like, it was funny. It was like, people don't even know who Kevin Austin is. Like, they're probably
not. I did that with Dante Pettis. I was like, who?
I know who he is because I watched him in training camp, right? Like, he was there the whole time, and he played pretty well. He earned a spot on the practice squad. But apparently, he's been busting his ass on the practice squad, and some veteran players went up to Rizz or have been talking to coaches, been like, you should give this guy a chance. He deserves it. And because they could have called up Equanimeous St. Brown for this game. They chose not to.
Right. That
Like,
was
he
a
had
head
one more
scratcher too at first. Like, what happened to EQ?
He had one more practice squad elevation. They chose to go with Pettis and Kevin. So I think that's good. The other guy I'll give a shout out to is Ugo Amadi. I think Ugo Amadi has played really well the last 2 weeks. He's an undersized guy. It's a tough spot to be in where you're trying to cover tight ends at 5'9" or whatever he is. But he's just a gamer, man. Like, he goes out there, he's got grit. He makes tackles, he makes plays. He's not going to win every time, but he's also going to go and give it 100% every time. Like, he's not a guy who gets beat before he gets beat. He had 9 tackles, I think. I don't know. Like, we're sticking with Alante on the outside, and I think there was a major question mark of how things would look in the slot. And I think the last 2 weeks with him, it's looked pretty good.
No, definitely like Amadi, and I'm not sure his contract status. We got to worry about losing him in free agency, Jeff.
Is that a joke?
No, I don't know. Like, with what's his name that signed with San Fran, one of the a guy that contributed.
Ike Adams?
Right. And I was like, oh man, you lost the guy you thought you could develop more.
Oh, I mean, Ugo's a veteran. He's been around for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on the practice squad until a couple weeks ago, so I don't think anyone's clamoring to bring him in. But like, no, I mean, sure, if he got offered a contract somewhere else that the Saints didn't want to match, yeah, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think that's something I'm worried about.
It just seems like the Saints, some of their, like, I don't want to say obviously the big names, but some like the key depth pieces end up, continuing on somewhere else. I guess you could say that for most teams.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's because the Saints feel like they can find more depth pieces, and they're not going to overpay to keep a guy who's your third cornerback. Like
right.
The 49ers brought in Ike, and they plan to start him, and I think they are starting him. And that's the Saints had an embarrassment of riches at cornerback. Now it doesn't feel that way, but they did at the time. But yeah, so all right, another one, Blake Grupe. 2 more made field goals. He made both his PATs. He's now 18 for 19 on the season. That's 94.7%.
Yeah, the interim head coach knows something about his special teams players.
Yeah. Now, they're not asking him to do a ton. At some point in his career, I'd like to think they ask him to kick a go-ahead field goal in the fourth quarter of a game. He has not had to do that one time. Actually, he did once. He did once in Green Bay, and he missed it. And he has not gotten a chance to redeem himself. And that's got to be so frustrating. Because I think he will. I think he is a clutch. I think he can be clutch. I think he does have that clutch gene, and we just haven't seen it.
Maybe he can erase those demons in a frozen tundra this season.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. You go up to Green Bay and you win on a Blake Grupe field goal as his leg snaps off in the because it's frozen. But no,
and your nose is frozen too.
I mean, all I can ask for out of the kicker is to make the kicks he's asked. He goes out there. You send him out there to kick it, and he makes it, right? And obviously, that one miss was frustrating. It was a short miss. But you make you're not going to lose a job making 94% of your kicks, and all of your 50+ yarders, which he's made 3 of them.
I was actually rooting for Will Lutz this week, and more of that Kansas City black magic came through.
It's brutal. But all right, let's wrap up this segment. We're going to wrap up this version of the podcast. If you're listening on the feed, this is going to be the end. But we will also be doing a mailbag, which we'll be posting in the podcast feed Tuesday morning. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll be coming right back to do that mailbag. So get your comments, questions in there. It's going to be a slightly longer break as I go in and try to pull them out. We'll do 2 segments, so we'll do probably 15 and 15, and we'll get to as many as possible. Who dat? Thanks everyone for listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. The Saints have won a game.
Thank you.
Now let's see if they can do it again. All
Maybe
right.
the Pope helped with that with his weird tweets.
He's been doing that for years, man. He's been doing that for years. At this point, I think he's doing it on purpose.
Yes, agreed.
All right. Who dat? Go Saints. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna do the mailbag edition of the pod, but we're gonna intro it like it's a new pod. So, Steve, you wanna do that?
Welcome on into Inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller and Jeff Nowak coming to you and riding high off a victory because we don't know the next time we'll get one, but we're gonna sure enjoy this one.
Special edition. This is a special edition of the Inside Black and Gold podcast. We're going to go into this is going to be a fully mailbag edition. We got a lot of comments on our last live stream, so we're going to break it all down. Saints won a game. The Saints are 3-7. The Saints have a long way to go before people start taking them seriously, but all you can do is win one game at a time. And next game up is a Jameis Winston-led Browns team, and Kevin Stefanski confirmed today that Jameis Winston will be the quarterback. Now, will Jameis have the same level of juice? This is my question. This is not a mailbag question, but I'm curious what you think. Do you think Jameis will have the same level of juice for a revenge game now that Dennis Allen is gone? Because I don't think he will. I think that was the... Go ahead.
No, I'm with you right there. It doesn't have that same luster to it without DA around to kind of rub it into. And he might actually be going, oh, shit, it's against Rizz.
Yeah, I mean, well, I genuinely don't know if he has a good relationship with Rizz or not. It seems like everyone does.
Exactly, right.
But like, if I was Jameis and I had that game circled on my calendar, it wasn't because, man, I want to get back at Alvin. Man, I want to stick it to this guy. I want to stick it to this guy. It was, I want to make Dennis Allen cry. I want to get this guy fired.
Right. He's like, damn, I wish I could have been that Carolina game.
Yeah. Right. And Andy didn't get the chance either. But anyway, it's just kind of funny to me. And like Derek kind of said this when he talked to the media after the game. He was just like, what do we have to lose? They already fired the coach.
That's awesome, right?
And he's right. Like, what's the punishment for being bad now? There is none. Like, just go play football. Have fun. Like, have a good time. Like care.
That was key too. You felt the fun, and obviously winning does that.
No question. You know, one thing that has been going on in the comments that I am just now I saw someone say Christmas came early for Jeff, and I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Am I talking about? They're saying that yeah, Will says Jeff with the early Christmas spirit. And I was like, what does this mean? And then I figured out that there's this whole conversation that I have like a really luxurious beard right now. And you know, I did tell you, Steve, that a couple weeks ago I said I'm going to grow a Duck Dynasty beard until someone tells me that I look unprofessional. And it's going well. You see, it's really, it's coming in.
You got the special beard oil and stuff to maintain it?
No, I'm all natural, baby.
Okay.
But I do have to like, it's hard to like get it to grow as if it's like a beard and not just, you start to look homeless after a while. Like that's the commitment is
right.
Like I still have to go to work. And Dan, our boss, Dan, the market manager, did mention it, but he mentioned it in a positive way. I've only gotten positive feedback, so apparently I should have been doing this earlier.
Yeah, anyway, I had like one time for like I was like, I'm gonna do no shave November, and like for Thanksgiving we took the family picture and was like, oh look, there's two nice people with a serial killer.
Yeah, well, my goal was like, hey, it's gonna get cold eventually, so might as well just well, that's not happening.
No, well, you'll need it in Green Bay.
It's true. That's kind of the idea. Is like once I have to deal with cold,
more layers. Nice.
But you know, I also wore a jacket on the sideline at the Dome yesterday for the first time, and now I have to wear it every week because you know, kind of like Colin Saunders grew a mustache. You're not allowed to shave the mustache after a win. As long as you keep winning, that's your look. So I've got to wear a jacket on. I got to be dapper as hell on the sideline. But anyway, this is not what this is about. This is a podcast about the Saints, not my manscaping. So Michael Morgan, who's been fair, you know, I mean, there's still some negativity out there, and that's fair. They're 3-7. They shouldn't be all positivity. But Mike's having a hard time dealing with this. He says, I think it was just the element of surprise, still an aging roster and lack of talent. What surprise are you referring to in this game against the Saints and Falcons, a game where these two teams know each other better than anyone? That they played hard? I don't think the Falcons were surprised by anything the Saints did. they were probably surprised that the Saints played well.
To me, the surprise was, wow, Scantling still got wheels like that, and Derek had 2 dimes in that game that literally was mouth open like, I can't believe he completed that.
Yeah, I guess you could say the surprise was MVS and the fact that receivers did anything in that game, and because
Right.
they really haven't. Like, you watch the Panthers game, like, where are the receivers in that game? MVS had 1 catch in that game for like 2 yards. But no, I mean, I think probably the surprise. I don't know if it was a surprise because even Kirk Cousins was talking about this going into the game. He was like, he understands, hey, when you have an interim coach, like a lot of times you'll get that energy boost and you got to match that. And that's why you'll see a lot of teams get that quick. And I don't even necessarily disagree with Mike here. I think it's going to be hard for the Saints to sustain the level of energy they played with this week. And it's going to eventually come down to like, hey, are you good enough? And you're going to have games against the Rams. You're going to have games against the Packers. You're going to have games against the Commanders. A lot of 3 good teams. And, you know, those are going to be tough games to beat. And you won't have the luxury of saying, oh, it's our energy boost from the interim. And we got a, you know, rivalry game here. And Cam's going to show up.
My other surprise is apparently I'm the only one that thinks that Taysom Hill needs double-digit touches, but I don't know.
No, you're not. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, because he didn't get him in the game.
Yeah. No, he needs to get more touches. Now the Browns is a different matchup. Like, especially like against the Falcons, like does he need double-digit touches every week? I don't know.
No.
Does he need double-digit touches against the Falcons?
Yes.
Every time, yes. 1,000 times, yes. And I'll give Clint Kubiak a pass because it's his first year, right? Like, he's kind of learning this in terms of how to use Taysom in the best way possible. And he's had to coach several games without Taysom. He's had to game plan without Taysom for a lot of this season. So, you know, I think this was just an example of, you know, this would happen to Pete Carmichael, and we would complain about it every time then too. Like, sometimes you outthink yourself and you get into the third quarter and you're like, wow, we haven't got him a touch in a while. When are we going to do it? You got to force feed it a little bit more than he did in that game. But either way,
that's where I definitely feel like a fan when it comes to Taysom for whatever reason. I never feel like he touches the ball enough.
No. There's never enough. Rich Vital says, does anybody have an ETA for Eric McCoy? ETA is tough because it's going to be it's not like there's a date where they're like, he's definitely back by this point. That said, in talking to him in the locker room this week, it sounded like he felt positive about playing this week. Now it's going to come down to the doctor. It's going to come down to whether he's ready. I would expect to be added to the active roster one way or the other, and you'll kind of see where that goes. But we'll have to wait and see. I think he's hoping to play this week against the Browns. If I had to guess in terms of the medical staff
after the bye,
yeah, I think if you're the medical team and you're a little sketchy about, is he ready? You have the bye coming up, and he's definitely going to be ready in week 13. But is he going to be ready in week 11? So you're going to have that's going to be something they determine probably throughout the week. I think if I'm doing it, I want to play him in week 11 because my question is not necessarily how is he going to play, it's how is he going to recover. And assuming he goes out there and you don't feel like, okay, the risk of re-injury is there, which it shouldn't be. He had surgery to correct it. I'd put him out there this week. I think there's a decent chance he's back this week.
Yeah, and I mean, at least the center position, obviously you have a big benefit of having him back. It hasn't been a huge issue without him.
Oh, it's been an issue. I mean, you've survived without him.
Right.
But you got very, very much worse on the offensive line when he went out. Like this, the offensive line was, dare I say, a strength over the first 2 weeks of this season. Like you shut down Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence like without issue, right? Like the Panthers weren't able to generate any pass rush in week 1, and then Eric McCoy goes down, and suddenly the entire group, like there are certain players that you lose on your roster that not only does losing them impact you negatively in the sense that you are not as good for not having this player on the field, like Chris Olave, for example. Like you lose Chris Olave, and suddenly your receiver core is not as good. But the other players in that receiver room are not worse for them not being there.
Right.
A guy like Eric McCoy, and I would say the same for a guy like Derek Carr, you lose the ability to improve the players around you, as well as losing the top end talent that you have at center. The guards next to him are not playing as well as they would if he was there. The protection communication, the protection plans, the checks you make are not as high level as they would be if he was there. And so I think that getting him back is a major, like, I think people underestimate just how much that hamstrung this offense. And obviously it's a tough analogy because tough word to use because he had a groin injury, but you get the idea, like how much that impacted this offense, not having him out there and what they were able to do, particularly in the run game. So we'll see. I think they will be much improved as an offensive line group when he gets back.
I just figured it. To me, it's like there wasn't the reason, at least I felt, the team was losing.
No, but it wasn't the team. But again, it's like,
efficient, sure.
Like, I don't want to sit here and trash Connor McGovern. I think Connor, for the situation he was thrown into, has played really well. I wasn't a fan of Lucas Patrick at center. I think he has played well at left guard. I don't think he's played particularly well at center. And Shane Lemieux, he's back now. I thought the one game you asked him to play center, he was serviceable. But it's gone from a position that's like a strength of yours as your center to a position where it's like, if we can get replacement level play, that's a win. So we'll see. But either way, I expect him to come back, and I expect that to be a big boost for this offensive line group when he does. Gen X girl says, glad the Saints won, but agree they still have tons of problems. I can't disagree with that. Like, yes, their problems didn't go away. That said, their problems were not significant to the point that they are a 2 to 3 to 4 to win football team, right? And the game they won yesterday is how they should have been able to win several other games. So, like, that's the difference to me.
We shall see. I'm just, obviously, things would have been a lot different if Koo didn't get that voodoo doll we had on Koo didn't work.
That's true. But I think he just used up all of his juice in that with that 58-yarder, because he hasn't been particularly good since. He's missed several games since that point. 992 RAS says ATL got double rizzled yesterday. Rizzed. They got rizzed, not Rizzler, not Twizzler, not rizzed.
Nobody beats the Rizz.
Will Hildebrand says, I got the new coach bump and the positive of DA being gone, so I felt like plus 3.5 was stealing, but they didn't cover. Oh, no, they did. They were underdogs in that game.
Right.
Yeah, it felt like that should have been closer to an even line, but it's like, again, it's always, where's the money, And it's just, there's not going to be a ton of money flooding in on the Saints, even with the interim coach bump, when you've lost 7 consecutive games.
They should know the NFC South better, though. Actually, I guess any division game, for you know what I mean?
That's true. 992 RAS says Turner, Young, and Cam all look good. Again, I thought they did it in moments. They did it in big spots. I don't think it was a great game by the defensive line in general. Like, you got run the F on all day. But that's the thing, when it bothers me when you talk about pass rushers, because like a lot of times it does come down to like 2 or 3 plays, and you're on the field for 60 snaps. You won 3 of those snaps. You had a good game. You don't win those 3 snaps. You had a bad game. But that's the difference, because we don't look at the run fits. We don't look at whenever they have to set the edge. We just look at the sacks. But I think Peyton Turner, like, I've been trying not to talk about him too much because I don't want to jinx the guy. But my big thing for Peyton this season was stay healthy, please. Find a way to get through a season. You'll get your opportunities. You'll get on the field. I just need you to be there when your chance is there. And to this point, he has. And he's made several impact plays throughout the course of the year. Like, tell me the impact plays you saw from the Saints, like, second and third string defensive ends last year.
Can't really think of any. Right.
I don't think they happened. So having that kind of third string guy he's a first round pick, and you might say it was a bad pick, but it's still like the talent level is there. And every now and then you'll see him make a play and be like, oh, that's right. Now I like, there was a reason that he was a high draft pick, even if maybe they reached for him.
Nice to see him have the energy and even obviously some kind of closer relationship, you would think, with a guy like Rizzi, just because he was coming up behind to bear hug him. He didn't mean to make him numb.
Oh, he wasn't trying to bear hug him. He was shoving him in the back.
Oh, I thought he gave him the big bear hug.
No, he just shoved him.
So he's pulling a Mike Evans on Marshawn move.
But it was a loving shove.
I gotcha.
It was not like I'm mad at you shove. And they were hugging in the locker room. Like it wasn't an angry thing. He probably felt terrible. He was like, I think I just hurt the guy.
Yeah.
And you do got to be careful when you're 6'4", 280, and you're shoving a, Rizz can't be more than 6 foot, 220. But if Peyton shoved me in the back,
I'd go on IR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already injured. I got a neck thing. I got a knee thing. I will tell you, I actually re-aggravated my knee injury. You want to know how?
No.
It was the Alvin play, the one he dropped the ball. And I try not to be overly dramatic on the sideline because that's not my place. I try not to scream and yell and do whatever, but I get into it, right? I get excited. And so I'm over like, oh my God, he's going to 50-yard touchdown to ice the game. And then he dropped it. And I swear it was involuntary. Fell to my knees. I was just so overwhelmed with emotion in that moment that I just dropped to my knees and I didn't mean to. I was not trying to be dramatic, and so I got up super fast. Oh shit, I can't do this. I'm not I'm not allowed to do that. But it was just that was my human reaction in that moment, was to fall to my knees.
Oh man,
I need to go look at the L22 and maybe see if I could find it somewhere. But and doing that messed up my knee. My knee was actually feeling pretty good throughout the course of the game. And then I did that, and it's been aching ever since. So
did Tyler look at you like, what are you doing?
Huh?
Did Tyler look at you like, what are you doing?
I don't know. I didn't ask him. I tried to play it off like I didn't do anything. Because I'm not supposed to be doing that. That's not how you're supposed to act on the sideline. I genuinely, it was not something I planned to do.
Right. It just happened.
But yeah, I did re-aggravate my knee injury doing that. But I mean, it was when stuff like that happens and you're on the field, you're just like, how? Because it all looks more real when you're on the field, God. Michael Morgan, this is what I say. He's been negative. They gave up 190 rushing yards. That's not a good game from the D-line. But when your team is mediocre, we'll take it. No, I mean, I agree with that. There were negatives in this game, but I can't. Someone posted the comment, and I want to find it.
What about the run D?
No. Oh, Will Hildebrand. He says they were outgained in yards, had less first downs, and possessed the ball more than 10 minutes less. DA coach teams never won games with that type of data. And that's again, when we talked about this, that's the difference, right?
Find a way to win, right?
Finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose. How many games have we looked at where the Saints led? Look at the Panthers game. Saints led in time of possession, they led in yardage, they led in every meaningful statistic except for 23-22. And they lost the game, the Saints were a more talented team than the Panthers, but they didn't play like it in big moments. And so I agree with that. I agree with both those takes.
A DA coach team was definitely finding creative ways to lose I've never seen before.
They sure were. Greg Raging Cajun says, I'm pumped, buddy. I'm well pleased with Rizzi.
Let's hope we stay pumped after this Sunday.
Yeah. Pammy Whammy says, I am not ready to see Rizzi's face in the frozen tundra. He's just going to get redder and redder. He's going to go full Coughlin. So that's my kicker, Mr. Groupinson. Okay, one more thing, and then we can take a break here. Snakebite says the energy in the dome was incredible, and I agree, it was really cool because you the whole time you're looking around being like, this is a 2-7 football team, and it would be very easy for fans to stay home and for fans to be like, I'm tired. But no, the folks in the building, and I wouldn't say it was a full house. There was some empty seats. I didn't think Falcons fans traveled particularly well.
Right.
Which is embarrassing for them.
Shocking.
Because that's a game you should travel for. It probably was a pretty cheap ticket. The
They
team
knew what
coming
was
off a
coming.
7-game losing streak. You couldn't travel for that one. But hey, there were some folks who trying to parade on Bourbon Street, and then it's maybe don't. But no, I thought the crowd was hot, and it's it really isn't that tough. No offense. Like, it's not that tough to get the Superdome excited. You just got to give them like literally any reason, and they'll get excited. You just got to like not feed them trash. Like, you know, like seriously, like they want to get excited. They want to cheer for you. Just stop playing terribly. And I do think that, you know, like there's still going to be some lingering resentment toward Derek Carr in that. Like, I think, and I know there's a lot of people who just don't like Derek Carr for football reasons, and I respect that. But I think even someone who didn't like Derek Carr would appreciate that a reasonably large portion of the hate directed at Derek Carr is a product of him being DA's guy and an extension of DA. And people were fed up with DA. So this dude comes in and they're just like, I already hate him because every time I hear him talk, I think about DA. And so I'm curious if the narrative around him can change at all without DA in the picture. And you're just like, okay, this is just a veteran quarterback who's better than the other options on the team and gives us a chance to win. Because that's how I look at it. Like, do I look at him as a guy who's going to take you to a Super Bowl? No. But I do look at him as the best option right now. And he'll be the best option next year too.
You give me 270 with 2 touchdowns, no picks. I'll love you.
Didn't get sacked. And
right.
It wasn't because he wasn't under pressure.
And like I said, just those 2 balls, maybe it was because too, I'm sitting atop the Superdome and just seeing, you know, going down the field, just placed perfectly too. And I saw some crazy, I think you even retweeted that some folks were complaining he threw into triple coverage, but man, what a throw that was to get to Scantling.
It wasn't really triple coverage. I mean, It was there, like in the end, it wasn't. So when I say that, I mean, I wouldn't say it was designed triple coverage, right? AJ Terrell came off Mason Tipton late and ended up in the frame. So you had 3 guys.
Right. So it looks like, they were crowded around him.
But he did outrun them.
Right.
and so, I mean, like in the sense that there were 3 defenders trying to get to him and none were capable. Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like, oh, he's in triple coverage, I'm going to throw to him now. Like he beat his guy. And that's when Derek decided to throw it. And by the time the ball got there, there were 3 guys in the frame, which makes for a great picture. You know, like that's why I tweeted the picture, because I was like, this is great. And it's also great that it was their 3 star defensive backs.
Right. Nah, that was awesome. That to me gave me a little extra boost towards Derek, giving me more of a vote of confidence in him. Like, oh, you can do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. We know he can do that. We've seen him do that. The question is, does he have a guy that he can do that with? And that's a good example of like, he hasn't been able to do that with Mason Tipton. It's been frustrating because Mason's a fast guy, but they just never seem to be on the same page from a timing perspective, from like where that ball needs to be and the angles and you know, getting to your red line and knowing your landmarks and being where you're supposed to be. And I think like just you can see the difference between a UDFA kind of learning that and a veteran who you can trust already knows how to do that, right? Already knows how to run those routes in an NFL way. And I think that's the difference between that missing, like you did against the Chiefs, and you hitting on that like you did in this game, because they went for shot plays against the Chiefs, you just couldn't hit on them. But all right, let's wrap up this segment. We're gonna come back. We're gonna hit a few more questions, then we're gonna get out of here. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Thanks, you know, Steve, because I'm bogarting your entire day with this. This was my idea. This was not Steve's idea. We're just going forever on a podcast like we always do. But I'd like to at least, you know, get our money's worth out of it, right?
Hey.
That's an inside joke. Don't worry about it. But all right, this is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're going to come back one more mailbag segment. So get your comments, questions in there, and we'll get to as many as possible. Who dat? We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. One more mailbag segment here. And there's a few things that we can talk about. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. Pammy Whammy says that parade didn't age well. She's talking about the Falcons parade. But you know what other parade didn't age particularly well? Is the Saints parade in Dallas. So I think we're all guilty of a premature parade that in hindsight looks. I don't know about you.
I mean, after that performance though in Dallas, it definitely deserved a parade. Unfortunately, the parade just didn't make it back to New Orleans.
I mean, at least we got the parade in before we realized the truth. All right. So a few more. Okay, Justin Pasquale says, I want to see more Jordan Mims. He's got juice and some fresh legs till Mullet comes back, though he can play now. Yeah, I'm done with the Jamal Williams experience personally. Like, what has he given you? And I like Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
But, what's the benefit of having him out there? Like, if you trust Jordan Mims in pass protection, I think we can live without those 1.5 yard runs on 3rd and 3. Like, I don't think those are doing anything for you. He's not a threat in the passing game. He can't return kicks. Like, let's have him inactive. I'm done.
He was one of the. I was hoping they could deal him off for a magical 6th round pick somehow, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of see it as I'd rather see a young guy there anyway. So even if he has more issues, even if he's not as consistent, I'd rather see what I have in that guy. And then when Kendre gets back, I'd much rather see what I have in Kendre. And maybe without DA, you can get something out of him. But
hand it to Taysom.
I agree with that. Yeah, true. and I don't know. I like Jordan Mims. I think he deserves some run, and he's done. I get being loyal to your veteran players and whatever, but at a certain point, it's what have you done to earn that role? And I just have not, other than pass protection, which is important. Don't get me wrong, it's important, but you're a running back, man. Running is in the title. Speaking of running, you'll appreciate this, Steve. Will Hildebrand says, Carr is a Camry. He's good. Get you where you need to go. That's my word. But he's not great. He will run forever, but you're never going to win a beauty contest. It's going to rust out eventually.
Living proof 2009 Camry right here, baby.
The radio won't work. The air conditioner is busted. Cruise control.
No, don't say that. That's probably the best thing. The AC is awesome.
AC is your deep ball.
Hallelujah. Right.
No, it's a good. I think that's a Nick Underhill, and he likes to do the car references. I've heard him talk about that before, but no, it's true. It's true. But people want to act like he's like a Vespa.
Damn.
All right, a few more. Forever A, we're getting really optimistic here. Do you think the Saints can make a run and possibly make the playoffs as a wild card with a 9-8 record? That would require them to go 6-1? 6-1 the rest of the way.
Termites.
Playoffs. Termites. Okay. We're gonna do this every episode for the remainder of this podcast. Is termites.
I would love to have pie in the sky dreams, but I just think there's still, for as much juice the Rizz factor might bring now, it still comes down to talent, and I don't know if they're ready to take on some of the other teams. There are a lot of teams that have, I guess you would say, as the same amount of talent, if not lower, in the rest of the schedule. But there are some other teams, like maybe the Rams game will scare me a bit, and obviously a trip to Green Bay stand out.
Yeah, there are some wins on this schedule, right? Like
the Giants,
Browns, Raiders. These are games you'll probably be favored in.
Tampa will be tough, of course.
Huh?
Tampa will be tough.
Will they? I mean,
I don't know. Right. I just figured division game. So
they're kind of falling apart. They've been competitive though. So they'll be tough. But at the same time, I'll put my money on the Saints going into Raymond James and beating them there any day of the week. They've dominated in that.
Right.
building.
It's not scary to go there for sure.
No, I actually feel more confident going there than I do playing them in the dome. Look at last year. Exact same thing happened. The Bucs came to New Orleans and dominated, and the Saints went to Raymond James and dominated. But no, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. Let's be real. It's not going to happen. But My belief in sports is that if you don't enjoy something while it's happening, you shouldn't like you're wasting your own opportunity to be excited, because
Live with it, ride with it.
and again, like if it's going to go bad, it's going to be bad regardless. If you worrying about it being bad now is you suffer twice, right? You suffer the entire time that you're miserable with not actually being hopeful. And then you suffer when it actually happens and you're going to be miserable either way. So you might as well just be like, hey, until it doesn't happen, let's root for it. You know, that's always been my approach to sports, because I want to have a good time. Like, that's all I want, is to enjoy myself watching football games, watching sporting events. And while it's virtually impossible that this happens, right? That you finish the season 6-1, 7-0, and you even at 9-8, they probably missed the playoffs. But like, the ride is part of the fun. And if you don't get on the ride until it's almost over, you don't get to enjoy the ride. You get to get off the ride at the end. Maybe you could lie to people and tell them you enjoyed the ride, but you weren't there for the real fun part of the ride, which would be the next 4 weeks, where it's kind of this will they, won't they, kind of situation. Like a great dramatic, it's like a great kind of dramatic romance comedy, where it's just like, if all you do is skip to the end when they're together, that's not the movie. Like, I know they're going to end up together in the end. If all I did was watch the end of The Proposal, it'd be like, well, what's the first half of the movie? That's where the funny parts are. That's where the good stuff is.
All I know is at least the team believes that, again, they can win. I haven't seen The Proposal, so I couldn't comment.
I only brought up The Proposal because it's if you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine,
still waiting for it to come on Disney Plus. I think soon.
Like, I can gently tap the fourth wall too. The Proposal. And it's a Ryan Reynolds movie, but Betty White's in it. Anyway, where was I? I completely lost the plot here. But no, I mean, so like at this point, I'm not going to sit here and waste my time being like, oh, it's impossible. What? Like, because we know it's impossible. We know it's not going to happen. But they could go out there and beat the Browns, and I'm going to have a great time during the bye week being like, well, what if it does happen? And then they're going to come back and probably lose to the Rams, and we will lose all hope of that being a thing. But whether that's the case then or it is now, you're going to be mad about it then. So let's wait until then.
Those damn Rams.
That's me preaching. But no, I mean, there's wins on the schedule, right? Like, again, we don't know, like, so much of the NFL is when you play a team. Like, I think the Saints are going to get better over the course of the remainder of this season as they get some of these players back, particularly Eric McCoy. Who knows where the Rams are? Maybe Matt Stafford gets hurt. Maybe something happens that eliminates their strengths. And you'll see how that goes. But that's my official position on that.
I think they just got Puka back, right?
They did. They got Puka and Cooper back, and they're rolling right now. I think they've won 3 in a row, maybe 4 in a row. Terry Molinaro says Kubiak babysits a lead. If Rizzi makes him grow a set, he will be on fire. I think, it's a good point. And I think part of the issue is, like, have we really seen scenarios where Kubiak has had a lead to play with typically? Like, that the way that game went against the Falcons, to me, is the recipe for the Saints team to win games. And it's just not one that they have had in a lot of games. Like, so yeah, you took a lead late against the Eagles. Like, that wasn't Kubiak babysitting a lead. You were behind. You took a lead late against the Falcons. Again, like, you were behind. So it's not like you had a 10-point lead and you were trying to do that. Now, in this game, I think I am critical of how he handled a 10-point lead, because he was just kind of, I think, playing it safe a little bit too much. And that's how he ended up getting close at the end, in my opinion. But he did get aggressive on that third down play, and you should have got a touchdown if Alvin's hands worked. So I think there's some give and take there. That said, I do think there's some things that we're seeing Clint learn in real time that you kind of, it's hard to evaluate, because there was a holding pattern when you didn't have your starting quarterback and there were so many injuries and you were losing these games before you even stepped on the field, right? Those 3 games with Spencer Rattler, you never had a chance in those games in hindsight. So you didn't get a chance to learn about Clint as a play caller. This was one of the first times you had a chance to really see how he would handle a game where he had a lead in it. And I agree. I think he did try to babysit a little bit, tried to milk it.
Well, you had the first 2 games were blowouts.
Well, yeah, and that's another example of like I don't learn much in those games. I learn what happens when everything works. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of stressful thinking that goes into, oh, what am I going to call up 30 in the fourth quarter? You know? But yeah. 992 RAS says no shirt, no pants, no problem. He's talking about Alvin. Okay, here's a question. Will Hildebrand again says, how many wins will it take for Rizzi to stay as a permanent head coach? And I'm not going to put the number at anything specific and say if he wins this many games, that he will be the head coach.
Right.
But I think we can set a number to say if he doesn't win this many games, then he probably is not going to be in consideration to be a head coach. And I'll put that number at 4. Right? If you can't get this team to be 500 over the second half of your season, particularly knowing that you have games against the Raiders, because that would mean that you lost a game against a team like the Raiders, Giants, even the Browns. And those are not games this team should lose. So that would be the number I put it at. Is like, I don't know how many wins it would take to win the job, but I think even if you go 6-2, 7-1, like you'd still go through the hiring process, you'd go through the interview process. But if you go like 3-5 the rest of the way, I think that kind of eliminates that discussion a lot.
When we were talking about tough games too, I was just, you're going through stuff, and I just remember too, the Commanders on the schedule. That seemed a lot easier at the start of this year.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
But yeah, I don't know if there's a number either. It's more of a feeling. I do think there is. You're probably right. You got to get 4, 5. What I wouldn't say an exact number gets him the gig, but definitely the feeling that you have with this team at the end of the year too, with the buy-in. I hate to use that term, but you just have that like the Raiders. I don't know. They had that high going out last season, and it won their coach the job. So maybe something like that could do the same here. And I wouldn't count Rizzi out the mix.
No, I agree with you. And, I think the buy-in is a factor if you get past that threshold of, we had success at the same time.
Sure, yeah.
Buy-in is great, but if you're losing 7 of your last 8 games, I don't care how bought in the team is.
Maybe depending on how the losses are too. You can't be getting blown out.
Yeah, right. Like I need to see not only buy-in, but also good football being played.
Yeah.
And I think you saw both of those things yesterday. In a tough game, you found a way to win it. Great. Step 1, down. I think one of the things Rizzi really needed to do to make that a serious conversation is beat the Falcons. And he did that. Because that matchup counts for a lot more than just the one on the standings line, in my opinion. It does for me. I'm sure it does for a lot of fans. So
yeah. Plus, there's so many factors in it. Obviously, Alvin's day. You didn't want to get swept by the Dirty Birds. His debut. So yeah, a lot of good feels from that.
Justin Pasquale says, I actually enjoy Rizzi interviews, and when he talks, he tells it how. I agree. I enjoy listening to him talk. He's a storyteller. It's one of the reasons I like listening to Sean talk, because he was going to say something. It was always worth listening to, because you were going to end up hearing something that was worth the time. Now, I'm not going to say that about DA, because I'm not going to lie to you. And I think that's, players pick up on that. People pick up on that. It's not exactly a mystery.
Yeah, I guess if we didn't want to hear from DA, apparently the players didn't either.
Again, it's a fine line between being charismatic and corny. And, like stuff like last year, well, maybe it was 2 years ago, I can't remember. They had lost a couple games in a row. They were going down the stretch of the season, and his message was like, how much gas do you have left in the tank, or something stupid like that. And he had gas cans in everyone's lockers, like red gas cans in their lockers, like a visual aid. And it's just an example of, like, to me, that's on the wrong side of the charisma corny line. And
I think he stole that too from Sean Payton, who I think put a gas can at, was it Roman Harper's locker room, I believe.
It's not even original either, right?
Right.
And the funniest thing about that, though,
Bordelli just put up there, keep chopping wood. That's my whole impression from Dennis. I'm chopping.
Yeah. The funniest thing that happened, though, is after he did that, like, a lot of the players were like, I don't need a portable. I don't need a gas canister, right? Like, what am I going to do with this? Like,
Put it in my trunk.
Even if I ran out of gas, I would call someone. But so Landon Young, who's just a country motherfucker, he goes around, he collects like 6 of them. So we're in the locker room. He's walking out. He's got like 3 under each arm because he's like, I can't get enough of these. I need them. I would imagine Connor McGovern would be the same way. Another farm child. But yeah, that's it's just a good example of like, okay, if I'm bought in and I'm like on like a listening and like I believe what you're saying and I'm bought in, then that's like maybe that can be motivating. When I'm not bought in, I'm just like, dude, this is corny, man. Like, and I don't know, I haven't been bought in for a while.
You wanted to be, but yeah, it was hard.
I tried as hard as I could. I spent a month out in California trying to get bought in. And the second we came back, it was like, I'm like, all right. If only they could relocate permanently out there.
I was bought in after 2 weeks. I was ready to go as Clint Kubiak for Halloween.
What would your Clint Kubiak costume have been?
It would just been a headset and like a tablet or whatever to try and just look like a coach, and people would have been like, who are you? And I've been like, Clint Kubiak, offensive genius, of course. I don't think he has like a distinguishable look about him, though, that I could really pinpoint.
Future head coach Clint Kubiak coming at you. You'd have to kind of mumble under your breath and talk about playing golf with your dad. You have to talk in like a monotone, like anyway, okay. Keep chopping wood. Bordeaux Lee. All right, that's all I got. Anything else you want to mention after an hour 52 of podcasting to get before we kick all these guys out of my house?
Obviously, the Falcons game, you look forward to those matchups against them. It's always heightens the senses of everyone. And I just think this one is interesting for me just because I can't wait to have Winston back in the Dome. I am not one of the folks on the Winston should have stuck around bandwagon. He would have been a great backup. Not a fan. So looking forward to the Saints defense taking it to him and getting some of those God's plan interceptions off of him.
Yeah. No, there's certain things throughout a season where it's like, okay, your goals are to win as many games as possible and make the playoffs. And whether those happen or not, you're going to have secondary goals. One is like, I'm not getting swept by the Falcons.
Right.
I'm not losing to the Cowboys. I'm not letting Jameis Winston walk back into this building and beat the bricks off me.
And give me some stupid speech that's going to be everywhere after the game.
I'm not letting him eat W's in my house.
Right.
I'm not letting Sean Payton walk back in here and do what he did, but he did that. Like that's to me, that was like when did DA actually get fired? This is the last thing I'll say. When did DA actually get fired in the sense that this was happening regardless, whether it went well for a couple weeks or not? The die had been cast. It was week 7 against the Broncos when Sean Payton came in here and dog walked his former team. That was the week that Dennis Allen really got fired. And he survived a couple weeks after that, in my opinion, because they didn't want to give Sean Payton the satisfaction of knowing he got the coach fired. But that was the tipping point. And that's why, like, those secondary goals, like those first goals, you want them to happen. You're really invested in them happening. But if they don't, you're like, we'll live. We'll survive this. Those secondary goals are the ones that
That's it. You pushes you over the edge, right?
We can't get swept by the Falcons. We can't let Sean Payton do what he did to us happen to us.
Well, cross that off.
Yeah. And those are the things that you're gone. He gone. Anyway.
Strike 3.
Strike 12. How many games? Strike 41. I think that's how many games DA coached.
Good luck to you as DC wherever you are, Mr. Allen.
Yeah. Good luck with those Super Bowl rings. You're inevitably going to win with a much, more Super Bowl ready team. But anyway, we're going to call it off there. Thanks everyone for hanging out. It's been a long episode. We're going to come back later in the week with our traditional kind of Wednesday injury report. And this week, I do want to get back into an actual game preview pod because I genuinely don't know much about the Browns other than Jameis, and they had Amari Cooper. They don't have him anymore. So like part of it's for me. Like I need the research. I need someone to come in here and tell me all the answers to my questions.
Right. It kind of gets us geared up for First Take on Sunday.
No, it's valuable. Like I get just as much out of it as the people listening, I imagine. But so we'll try to get back to that on Thursday or Friday. Either way, thanks everyone for listening. This has been a frustrating season. Hopefully, we get to celebrate a few more wins before all is said and done. But until then, who dat? Thanks everyone. Subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. Till the next time.
Bring on the Browns.
Peace. I never ended the stream. Bye.